The broadcast is now starting. All attendees are in listen-only mode.
Good afternoon, everyone. Thank you for joining us again. It's the beginning of this year. Hopefully we left you in a good mood the last time, and I guess we did, because here, according to your request and Voice of the Customer webinar we had on December, we are providing part 2, and we really appreciate you giving the feedback, taking into consideration what really the webinar was about last month, which was raising your voice. We heard you loud and clear. And we had the pleasure to have actually Tony Belilovskiy back. So thank you so much, Tony, for joining us. For anyone who is new to these webinars, we represent the American Society for Equality, Human Development and Leadership Division, which is the global arm of this society. If you are not a member, you can reach to us. We can let you know on how to get involved as a member, as a participant. There are multiple ways to get involved, to give and get back. Without further ado, last time we had time constraints as well, but I know the topic was very interesting for you. I do want to point out this has been a workshop before, so keep that in mind. That's why we're trying to actually cut short on the opening, to let Tony a bit more time to go over the material that we didn't cover. He'll be kind enough to go over what we kind of covered shortly last time, and we'll take it from there so everyone is on the same page. To get credit, I keep getting that question multiple times. You will have to be on the webinar minimum 40 minutes. It is, if your system is cutting short, I can't do anything about it. The system provides me a report that shows who has been on the webinar for 40 minutes, and then I'll send an email to those people, a separate email from the follow-up email, saying that you have been awarded the 0.1 credit. And you can save that email as a PDF or however you report the credits to ASQ. In the future, we'll have more webinars coming. We're looking always for new speakers, new topics. If you have recommendations for new topics that are of your interest, that feel that you could be getting some gain out of it, feel free to reach out. I also have some already covered, so until March, we are covered already. We'll have some new things we'll share at the end, but by further ado, I would like to actually have Tony talk a bit more about yourself and your experience. We've covered your bio last time, but it would be kind of nicer to hear a bit what you would like to focus on. So, thank you.
Thank you, Sidita, for the introduction. So, welcome everybody. And for those of you who've been here last time, hello again. For those of you who are new, my name is Tony Belilovskiy, and I work with C3 Excellence, which is a company in Sarasota, Florida. What we do is we try our best for the last 35 years to bring strategic objectives of the companies with strategic objectives of their customers. So everybody wins. So when the company says that they want profit, they want market share, they want recognition, the only way that they can achieve it is if they will actually listen to what their customers are telling them and incorporate that into their strategic plan. So what I'm going to be doing today is I'm going to be talking a little bit more about Voice of the Customer. I will actually share some real life examples with real life customers that we have done, the ones that I can actually share, the ones that were in public domain, meaning that I'm allowed to talk about those particular companies, and where I will actually show you how those exercises are done, what are the results of those exercises, and what kind of information you can get from them, and what you can use it for, and how you can use it to develop new products or improve your existing products. This, a little bit about me. I have my original degree in engineering. My first degree is in engineering. My second degree is in healthcare and healthcare management. My master's is in healthcare management and education. And I have been working both in healthcare and in self-employed in my own business for the last 16 years. But I've been in healthcare since 1995, so 25 years. And without further ado, let's start talking about Voice of the Customer. So for those of you who've been on my last webinar.
On this one, you mentioned actually that you're going to give some examples as well, so that is great. And I want everyone to know that in order to estimate the time, how much time we will need for the questions, every time you hear, Tony, that you have a question, a comment, or anything, please use the question box, even if it's a comment that you would like to share or explore a bit more. Do it as it comes in your mind, because that way at the end I would know how much time actually we can spend on question and answers, so we take into consideration what you need, and so we don't interrupt Tony unnecessarily, and that's something that would help us estimate the time management as well, and taking whatever questions you have. If there is really common question coming over and over, I might even stop you, Tony, and tell you the feedback we're getting, so you can do the same thing with them. Thank you.
And just before we begin, as I said, as Sedita said in the beginning, this is an adaptation of a live training, live webinar. So a lot of the things that usually go into it are very interactive. What I'm trying to do is I'm trying to make it more entertaining, that you don't get bored. But on the other hand, because there is no interaction, I'm going to be posing the questions and I'm going to be answering them the right way. But Sedita has experienced the interactive part, and she knows that it can get pretty interesting. And if anybody would be interested in actually doing, we also have the interactive webinar sessions, and the next one is coming up last week of January for our interactive webinar that you can sign up for, where we actually be dividing people into groups. So they're going to be working on their own issues, on their own problems. We will be providing tools. They will be going into the groups on Zoom, and they will come out with, depending on what we're doing, strategic plan or actual
hands-on
blueprint of what hands-on, what they can do, or what can be done, or what they already did something during those 4 hours.
Thank you.
So it's actually pretty interesting. So let's go into the program. These are the objectives for today. What I really want to concentrate on is the objective number 3, on how we can use the voice of the customer to create the new products or improve the existing ones, because that is ultimately the goal, why we want to do voice of the customer. And I want to start with a diagram, 8 dimensions of excellence. For those of you who have been here last time, you're probably pretty familiar with this. For those of you who are new, I just want to talk about it for just a little bit. In our daily work, most of the things that we concentrate on are related to process improvement. That is what we know. That is how we train. That is what we're trained to do. We address it everywhere. We talk about processing at the meetings. We talk about processing in our emails. We talk about process. Process is what we're trying to do. But if you look at this diagram, mostly what we're addressing is dimension number 8, which is our producers' priorities. That's how we are going to produce our products. And if you look at this diagram, the numbering is actually not going from left to right, but from the right to left, the opposite direction. And the reason for it is because we always want to start with the end in mind. We always want to make sure that we know what the goal is, what the end result looks like. If we don't have that information, we will be lost along the way. We can create a beautiful process that will have absolutely 0 waste. It will be 6 Sigma compliant. But if we're going to be creating a perfect process to produce a buggy whip, do we really need a buggy whip right now? There are no buggies anymore. But we've created a beautiful one because our process is the best and it's 6 Sigma compliant. So without actually looking at the whole picture together, without knowing what the outcome is, where we're going with this, we may be not necessarily spinning our wheels for creating a perfect process. So what we want to do, if we look at the diagram above the dotted line, this is our voice of the customer or customer experience. Not the same thing. Voice of the customer is what the customer really wants. Customer experience is what they get, what we're giving them as producers with our products. We really want to make sure that those two are the same, that voice of the customer is the customer experience. What they want is what they get. But unfortunately, in real life, that is not the same thing, and us as customers of any enterprise, very, very rarely do we get what we really want. The first time without asking, it's just given to us. So everything on the top is a voice of the customer. Everything in the bottom is the voice of the producer, and which is also very important, because in dimension number 5, we have things like profit, market share, brand recognition, customer loyalty. That is all in number 5. That's what we want from our products. That, you know, as any producer, any corporation, that's our desire. We need to make money in order for us to be sustainable. Also, we don't want warranty, which is dimension number 6. We really want to reduce the warranty claims. We really want to reduce customer complaints. We know dimension number 7, the characteristics of the products that we are producing. We know them, and definitely we know the process. So we really got it nailed. We know everything there is to know about voice of the producer. But in order for us to really be successful, what we want to do is we want to combine those two voices. We want to make sure that we're not only listening to our voice, but also to the voice of our customers. And when we combine those two things together, that's when the true magic happens. That's when we get the brand loyalty. That's when customers are flocking to us and buying our products, and we actually get profit. So if we can merge those two expectations, that is our goal. And that's what I will be concentrating on today. In order for us to be able to do that and actually answer that question, we need to know who the customers are, what do they really want, and what is the product. And everything that I'm going to be talking about is hinged on that notion, the product. What is the product? I know it's going to be a repeat of last time, but we're going to go over it very quickly. But I just want to reiterate, I can't stress enough the importance of the product. So what is product? Product is a connector between the process and the outcome. If we created a process, we are producing a product in order for us to achieve some kind of outcome with that product. Product is something that we can measure. Product is something that we can describe. Product is something that we can categorize, catalog, price out, know how long it takes to create, know how much it costs to create. So product is the only tangible thing that we have, because processes may change. Outcomes may also change with time, but product will stay the same. If we change the product, we will change the outcome in the process. These are the characteristics of the product. These are the 6 characteristics, and in order for us to call something a product, we absolutely have to satisfy all 6 of these criteria. So it has to be a noun, it has to be able to make plural with an S, and it has to be deliverable to somebody. We think of our work as activity. We produce, we audit, we categorize, we teach. But I challenge you to think about your work as producing products, not activity, but products. Because when every single one of us are producing products, we produce knowledge products. We don't produce widgets, we produce knowledge products. So these are our designs. These are our specifications, our audits, our emails. This is what we produce. So these are all our products. And when we produce those products go into a larger product, which is a unit product, that will go into the larger product that is an enterprise product. You can trace everything or any kind of problem to an individual product. And usually it's a knowledge product. And a lot of times it is what we call a source product. Source product is, just like it sounds, a source of all good and evil. These are your statutes. These are your regulations. These are your standards. So if we don't have a standard on how to produce a certain product, we're going to have variation. If we have variation, we don't have consistency. If we don't have consistency, we're going to have actual returns or not a quality production. So if we think about our work as product and not as activity, these are the examples. So for example, if we're auditing, our job is to audit something. Well, we produce audit reports. Those will be our products. If we are actually managing something, well, we produce plans, we produce procedures, we produce proposals. If we are teaching, we produce courses, we produce course descriptions, we produce syllabus. If we're hiring, well, we produce job descriptions, we produce qualified candidates. So try to, during this presentation, think about everything that you do as products, not as activity. I'm not really going to go through this exercise in depth, but I'll just tell you why any of these are not products. Well, relationships, actually, it's not a product because you can't give it to somebody. You can't personally give a relationship. Like, can you give me 3 relationships? Doesn't work that way. Information is kind of a product, but it's not really a product because it's too big. Information is too general. We said that product has to be packaged in accountable units and very specific to the producer. Information is too broad. So we need to specify what kind of information we're talking about. What is the narrowest point within that information? Then it would be a product. Staff is not a product. We don't produce staff. Qualified candidates is a product, but not staff. Auditing is activity. Results, outcomes. Managing, again, activity. Data, same thing with information. You need to really, really go down into granular level to specify what kind of data we're talking about. And planning, again, it's an activity. It's not a product. So if we understand what is the product or have a general understanding of what is the product, then we really need to know about the customers. And again, I'm going through it very quickly because I really want to get to the heart of the matter, which is just in a few slides when we're actually going to be talking about the voice of the customer and why is it important. But before we can talk about it, we really need to talk about who are the customers and differentiate those different roles that customers can play with our product. So, who is the customer? Customers have multiple aliases. You know, if I will ask 10 people in the audience, when you think customer, who do you think? I may get really multiple answers. Here are the possible answers, just most common ones that we hear amongst the audience when we had live sessions. You know, for somebody it's a client, for somebody it's a guest, for somebody it's a patient, for somebody it's a prisoner. You know, think about tax agencies, you know, where, or government, where the prisoners, you know, we have no other place to go. We have to pay taxes. But I would urge you to think about your customers as fans. Because if you can create fans out of your customers, you did something right. And the reason is, think about it. Most of us on this phone call are fans of some kind of either a team sport, whether it's baseball, football, hockey, volleyball, swimming, whatever, any kind of sport. Most of us are fans of that sport. Does it mean that our team always wins 100% of the time? No, they don't. They don't win 100% of the time, but we're still fans. We will still be there when they're playing and we will still cheer for them. Why? Because we love them. We know that they can't deliver 100% of the time. We want them to, but we are forgiving them for not delivering because we are their fans. If you can create fans out of your customers, They will understand that you may slip once in a while. You may make a mistake somewhere, but they're your fans. You know, they will forgive you that omission somewhere because you're consistently giving them what they want. You're consistently fulfilling their expectations. I can tell you that I'm a fan of Southwest Airlines. I've flown as a consultant. I have thousands of miles, thousands and thousands and thousands of miles, but I keep coming back to Southwest Airlines because yes, it's no frills airline, but I know that my luggage is going to be there. I know everything will be done with a smile. I know that sometimes I even going to get entertained on the plane because somebody is going to do some kind of a skit, or somebody is going to do a joke, or I will get as much water as I want to, or as many peanuts packets as I want to, and everything will be done with, again, with a smile. When you look at those flight attendants, they want to be on that plane. They want to fly that plane. Well, some other airlines, you look at the flight attendant and it's like, oh my God, why am I here? What am I doing here? You know, they hate to be here. They don't want to be here. So they are like obligated to be there because it's their work. And Southwest Airlines, a lot of times people will go in and, you know, it just lifts your mood because and Southwest Airlines is not perfect. You know, they've been in the news several times that they had some safety emissions, and, you know, you will get an altercation or two here and there with one of the employees, but in general, 99% of the time, they're great. So I can tell you that I'm a fan of Southwest Airlines. And I want you to think about that. When you figure out who your customers are, think how you can make them fans of yours. So there are 3 different roles that customers can play with our product. The first role is end user. End users are the ones that ultimately used our products. They are not a homogeneous group, and they all have different relationships with the product. Just for starters, there are men and women, unless the product is specifically for men or specifically for women. But usually, there will be men and women using the same products, and they have different expectations and different relationships. So remember that. There is if we talk about end users, we really can talk about segmentations to the minute levels, again, depending on the product, depending whether we need to actually go as deep or as not as deep, again, depending on the product and what we're trying to do with that product. Brokers. Brokers is probably the largest category of customers that we deal with, especially in the manufacturing world. Brokers can play multiple roles with the product. They can play a role on behalf of the producer. They can play a role on behalf of the end user. And they can play a role on their own behalf because brokers usually benefit financially from the relationship with the product. Brokers transfer the product from the producer to the end user to their own benefit. So a lot of times when we talk with the customers, we talk with brokers. So we're not necessarily going to get the truthful information because all the information we're going to get from them is going to be skewed by, are we going to make money on this transaction, and how much money are we going to make? Is it more beneficial for us to make money with this transaction or with that transaction? And so you have to be very careful and understand that if you talk to brokers, you need to make sure that you know that information that you get from them, what it means. And finally, fixers. Fixers are the ones that have to fix, augment, or change the product during the lifetime of it on behalf of end user. And fixers know in excruciating details what actually needs to be done with the product and how to fix it. And unfortunately, a lot of times we don't necessarily ask them about their knowledge, because usually those are the people in customer service that are one of the lowest paid people in the company, and they're logging things into the CRM system, customer relationship management system. And there are multiple companies that don't even know that the system exists and how, or if they do, they can't really get the information out of it. But we're really not going to go into that. But fixers a lot of times have a lot of answers and that information is left untouched. Just think about it. Why is this important? Why is it important to segment customers in these particular roles? Well, because depending on the product, same people may play different roles. Here's an example. I used it last time, and I'm going to use it again just to reiterate my point. What is the prescription? Just think in your head about a prescription. If it would have been live, I would have asked you to do a Pictionary and just draw it on a piece of paper. Well, there are three possible answers to that question. Here they are. The correct answer is number one, the pad of paper. But believe it or not, in the room, when we do it live, it's a 50-50 answer. Usually at every single table, there will be people that will draw a pad of paper, and there will be people that will draw a bottle of pills. Why is this important? Here is why. If this is the product, then who is the producer? The doctor is the producer. Who is the end user? Well, the pharmacist is the end user, not the patient. The pharmacist is the end user of the product of a prescription pad. Patient is actually a broker or the nurse, because patient will physically bring that piece of paper to the pharmacist to fill, or the nurse will put it in the electronic medical records. But if this is the product, the bottle of pills, who is the producer? The pharmaceutical company. Who is the end user? The patient is the end user. And then we get the cast of characters for the brokers. We got the pharmacists who fill the prescription. We got the doctors who wrote the prescription. And then we have friendly HMO who will decide whether they're going to pay for the prescription. And we also have a salesperson who will tell the doctor what to write or what will be more beneficial. And what would that cast of characters do to the unit cost of that pill? Well, they will raise it up. So think that is a very important point. Brokers will always increase the cost of the product. So what we want to do, we want to try to eliminate brokers as much as possible from the picture, because the unit cost of the product will go up. And that raises a very important point.
So
we
Tony,
cannot meaningfully talk. Yes.
Tony, before we go and jump into this, I would like to test the question box, because I'm not getting anything. I want to make sure they're hearing me right and getting my messages. If you have any comments so far, please use the question box, even if you just want to test it out, because I need to see that I'm actually not having any issues in getting all your answers answered, but I need to test. Okay, good. So good to go. Back to you.
Okay, so we really need to know when we say who the customers are, we really need to specify what product they're customers for. And now let's dive into the world of voice of the customer. If we will offer our customers a total satisfaction, absolute total satisfaction, anything they want, we will provide them, but we can only do it for either performance or perception. Which one do you think they are going to choose? What customers will value the most? Well, they will value perception the most. We and performance second. Now, what do we measure the best? Well, we measure performance the best because we know how to do it. And perception, we're not really sure how to measure perception, because perception is this, touchy-feely, gray, squishy subject that doesn't necessarily can be quantified because it's how I feel today. So perception plays an important and enormous role in everything that we do. And it can actually cost you billions of dollars. I want to give you the example. So please read for yourself the next few slides. They are going to be about 7 to 10 seconds each slide. Just read the script, read what it says, and see why perception is incredibly important. And then we're going to be talking about how we can measure it. this is what perception can do to the company. And according to specifications and according to RFP that was put out, both planes were perfectly aligned with the RFP, and they met every single one of the, both Lockheed and Boeing met the exact specifications that Air Force was looking for. But looks apparently matter as well. And that is very important. Perception on how your product looks is incredibly important. So let me repeat the same that I showed you before, the same slide that I showed you before, but I'll add one more element to it. Now, again, if we can offer total satisfaction, but you can only choose one as a customer: outcome, perception, or performance. Which one would be number one? Which one would be number two? Which one would be number three? What do our customers value the most? Well, outcome would be number one, perception would be number two, and performance would be number three. Okay, let's repeat the exercise. What do we measure and what do we know how to measure the best? Performance would be number one, perception would be number two, and we have no clue how to measure outcomes, because again, a lot of our measures that we write are not necessarily numerical. Unless we have numerical measures, we can't really say that we can measure it. So how do you do this? How do you measure that perception and the outcome? So let's really start talking about it. For the rest of the presentation, that's all we're going to be talking about. So we are using what's called word formulas. We have created several word formulas that will be able to get you the answers on the outcomes, on the functions, and on the features of the product. And we will get to the perception in the next round. So these are the formulas. They will be provided to you in the handout, but let me show you how it works. So for example, if we are asking about a very specific product, again, I said you have to know exactly what product you're talking about. The question that we are going to ask first is, for example, a satisfying website is the one which is, that will provide us with function. A satisfied website has, that will provide us with features. And the most important, results in, that will give us an outcome. That can be done in multiple formats. These questions can be asked in multiple formats. One of the formats is actually a focus group. And we have this whole flow of the focus group and how to do that. And here is the real life example of when we use this format and what came out of it. This is a Yellow Pages. And if you have ever tried to find a doctor in the Yellow Pages, I know we don't use that anymore, but think about old times, good old times. You know, Yellow Pages were very useful. If you don't use them for the telephone, you know, you can prop a lot of things with them. They were just the right thickness. If you try to find doctors, well, you cannot find it under the D. There is no doctors under the D. It actually tells you that you have to go and find physicians and surgeons. So Yellow Pages actually hired us to do this exercise. And we asked users of Yellow Pages this particular question. A satisfying Yellow Page directory is the one which is. These are the answers that they gave us. The one that has, they gave us multiple features. And the most important, the one that results in finding the answer, making the best use of my time, confidence, stress reduction, improved productivity. That's what they wanted. So guess what? Yellow Pages had to redesign how they are going to do their business, what they did. So they did actually redesign this. Believe it or not, they actually followed their customers, and they have created something that I'm going to show you in the next slide. Because when you try to actually, if you don't know English well enough or you don't speak medical language, do you really know that eye doctor is an ophthalmologist, or the throat doctor is ENT, and what ENT means, otolaryngologist? Well, ear, nose, and throat, or otolaryngologist. Do you really know that? Do you really have that depth knowledge of English? Well, this is what Yellow Pages created based on these findings. This is what the new Yellow Page looked like, where they actually made a picture, because picture is better than 1,000 words. They created a picture, and in that picture, they actually pointed different body parts and which page you can find doctors responsible for those body parts. So you can use that for the directory, but we don't use those directories anymore. But guess what? If we do it for the website, same thing, same answers. And when we actually did this very recently with a county government entity in Iowa, and they have identified that website was one of the top products that they needed to improve, because if they will improve the website, and they did a focus group on that, what they heard is that if you will provide us with a meaningful website that we can do everything with, and we can find it all right in the front page, in the home page, you know, lines in the tax collector's office or in the DMV or everything will be reduced. That's what they heard. So we did another exercise. We wanted to find out what features the customers actually want. So we did this particular exercise where we asked customers to write 15 attributes, at least 15 attributes, and answer the question: a satisfying website is the one that is. These are the answers that we received. And the way the exercise is done is people, each of them writes their own answers. Then they combine all the answers together. And then they choose top 5 that they like. Each person chooses top 5 of everything everybody wrote. And then they vote. And when we vote, we just tally for each attribute how many votes. And the ones in yellow got the most votes. So what do you do with that? What do you do with that information? You have to create measures. You have to understand, if you're going to implement this, how you're going to measure whether you're successful or not, whether satisfying, whether the website is actually satisfying, whether customers are happy with your design. So these are, again, the formulas for creating measures. And those formulas are actually listed on the same page, on the same handout as the VOC handout that you will be getting there, just on the bottom of the page. These are the various formulas that you can do when you create measures. This is not really the topic, but it's a natural flow, because what I want to do is I want to show you how it all comes together. And this is the tool that will help you to create that. So these are the measures that the team that worked on the website actually created. So these are the measures that were created based on the guidelines that were on the previous slide. Now, when you have the measures, you have the attributes, and you have the outcomes. How do you actually put it all together and create that new product? This is how. We use product design table. So we put the outcomes or attributes into the affinity groups. The top 3 affinity groups usually are ease of use, timeliness, and certainty. And then then some product specific affinity groups. But it never fails 90% of your attributes will fall into these three categories: ease of use, timeliness, and certainty. So we took all of those voice of the customer attributes and we put them in various affinity groups. Then we took those measures that were created in the product design. These are the product design criteria that also were designed based on the voice of the customer exercise. And then we created a table. And this table is very simple. If number of requests for help if we want to achieve the expectation of intuitive to navigate, and the measure is number of requests for help, if it goes down, it means the website is intuitive to navigate, correct? If it's organized the way I think as a customer, if number of requests for help decreases, then it means it's organized the way I think. Then it means that it's easy to find answers. But visually simple, it doesn't really have any kind of value on number of requests for help, because whether it's visually simple or not. So it's a 0. And then you actually count pluses or minuses. You omit zeros. And the product design criteria that got the most votes, right here, these two, the percent of page filled with visuals and number of clicks needed to find an answer, were the most valuable design criteria. And these two design criteria is what people that were designing this website concentrated on, because customers said we want to find it all in one click. That was one of their outcomes: find information in one click. And they have designed this website. It's a Linn County, Iowa website. If you will go to that website, you can pretty much do every single thing you can ever do with the county from their homepage. Doesn't look like much, but when you hover your mouse, all of a sudden the menu explodes. You can get to every single department, every single thing that you can do with that website right from that homepage. And they've done it. They use the design criteria. They use the voice of the customer to design their website. By doing that, they have reduced the lines at the tax collector's office, lines at the auditor's office, planning office, permitting office. Now 90% of the business is done on the website. This was done several years ago. Guess what? They are really loving it right now with COVID, because they can't really do a lot of people in the county buildings. So everything could be done on the website based on the design criteria that they gotten from this exercise. So what? The customer's definition of product may be totally different than what we think of that product. We always want to rethink the product because it may lead to actually innovation. Customers only tend to answer questions that we ask them, but they're not going to reveal more than we ask them. So, just good old don't ask, don't tell. Unless we ask them the right questions, we're not going to get the right answers. This is my favorite one. A luxury once experienced become necessity. Think about cell phones. In 2000, 2001, how many people had cell phones? Not that many. Is there a person right now who doesn't have a cell phone? By asking the right people, the right question, the right way at the right time, we can get right answers and we can have the biggest impact on what we're trying to do. And finally, how many voices of the customers can we possibly have? If you look just at the outcomes and 4 dimensions of the outcomes, dimension 1, 2, 6, and 5, how many voices can we actually have? The answer is, it all depends on the product, and probably more than 11. And here is the math. For each product that we have. We may potentially have 12 voices, 12 separate voices. And if we really want to create a brand new product, or we really want to improve our product, we may have 12 different focus groups or 12 different sessions to ask each of those voices. And you know, if Link County could do it, you can do it too. And this where you can actually use this particular material about voice of the customer. And do you have any questions, Sedita? I'm actually right on time this time.
Yeah, I'm surprised. Well, I've seen you at the conference, so I know you always take 2 sessions. So we should have thought about that before. And we have a silent room, so it's hard to know how long it takes. But we do have a couple of questions that came in. And one of them is from Kendall, and going back to your product design table.
Yes.
That does look like the house of quality. So
yes,
how is that different, or what would you take and leave kind of thing? What's the difference in between, or what we need to be watching out for?
Well, yes, we use this. So this table can be used not necessarily just for the product design. It can be used for actually various different purposes. It's incorporating house of quality, but also it incorporates numerical goals for improvement or product design criteria. So it's the same thinking, but it's actually rearranged in the way it's used. And if you would know our system, you would actually see this type of tables used in various areas with various attributes.
So yeah, so that's what I was about to ask.
We took the house of quality, but we simplified it.
Okay. And the attributes themselves, I've used before selection metrics to just review how our carriers were doing at that time. And the attributes themselves, I asked the operations people themselves to come up with some attributes that they wanted to compare a service of vendors, for example. And then so what common areas they were, kind of personalize it that way to change. Do you change these attributes? You said you do, right? Based on whatever you are using it for?
Yes, exactly.
Okay.
Exactly. Because this, we use this particular table for this particular exercise, but you can actually increase it where you can increase the attribute groups, like affinity groups. You may, instead of product design criteria, you actually can have numerical goals, or you can have a list of products and see how a particular product will influence a particular outcome. You can use this as a strategic plan table, where you can see if this particular product is going to influence an outcome, strategic outcome, and that's how you can actually find products that are critical to your organization.
As you said, the product here, it's key to remember. I know you pointed out before that the product cannot just be from a outside customer perspective, an external customer.
Yes, it's also internal products.
Exactly.
90% of the products that we produce at work don't see the light of day.
Yeah.
They are all internal. They are all inside, and we are all customers of each other. And we keep forgetting that.
Yep.
And that is extremely important to remember, that the report that you have produced as an auditor will go to the engineer that will have to make changes, or to the production line that they will have to make changes. They are the customers of your report. You are the producer, they are the customers. If they have a question, they can go directly to you to ask a question about the product that you have produced.
This is kind
Some of these products can be detrimental. I'm sorry?
Exactly what you were just saying here, because we keep criticizing so much that we work in silos and we're trying to get away from it. So sometimes I'm into, let's make the culture of quality all over the place, because we are all one and the customer is then outside. But at the same time, we have to remember what you're saying. We are also customers to each other. So we do need to, yes, remind that we are customers to each other, but at the same time, don't go and build that silo again and saying, you're my customer, so this is my own area, let me do this thing, and I know how to do it, whatever. It's a ambiguous kind of line, but it connects with one of the questions I saw, which was very interesting. One of the attendees here, Ricardo, thanks for your question, is asking about, they do internal auditing, but they don't see the customer satisfaction data, which was my question. Follow up to that was, well, are you linking the KPIs with SQIs? And Ricardo's role is a plant quality manager. I just get to discuss the SQI with corporate. So while they do internal auditing, shouldn't they also connect with when that SQI level is? Are they doing anything wrong? That's, I guess, the question is.
So let me understand this.
Plant quality manager, internal auditing, but they don't see the customer satisfaction data. Yep.
Yeah, but who is the customer of their product?
So that'll be Ricardo. Let me see if I have him here. Where do they basically send the auditing results, you're saying?
Yes.
He's the voice for that department because he talks to corporate for the SQIs. But I'm surprised the corporate doesn't talk to him for the SQIs. So kind of.
Because you see, do they really have numerical goals for improvement? They do the customer satisfaction data, but what kind of customer satisfaction data do they actually have? Do they have the is it a survey? Is it a satisfaction with the end product?
Why does it matter?
What is it?
Why are you trying to where are you trying to reach so we can take up a couple of other questions?
What I'm trying to say is it numerical? Is it something that can be put in numbers and linked to a specific product in the plant? Because if people say, for example, that the product that come out of the conveyor belt or whatever the plant is producing, if the product is defective and there is one particular defect, it actually could be not a plant. It could be a design that plant is using to produce that product. So unless you can drill down into the data and understand what is the point of dissatisfaction or what is not necessarily on the right level of satisfaction, it's not necessarily could be a plant. It's not necessarily the person who actually produced that widget. It could be a design for that widget, a flaw in the design.
So you're saying if they are linked to what their products within their internal auditing is, then yes, they need to be aware, but they might not even be linked to that department. So it might be their customer might not be an external customer.
So their plant may be punished for something. Yeah, their plant may be punished for something that has nothing to do with them.
So Ricardo, when you go to work, ask your team who's our customer first, without thinking of straight to the external customer, because it might be that your reports are going to an internal customer, and that's all you need to be carrying off at that, what I'm understanding.
Exactly.
Right?
Exactly. Absolutely.
Okay.
And if you have any questions, you can email me directly. My email is on the screen, and
available.
I can go over that with you.
Yep, they don't get satisfaction, they just get complaints. That's another interesting one. Sometimes we pay for things we're not responsible. Ricardo, reach out to Tony. You need him, it looks like the whole plant needs. Okay, so another question. Kendall, is the quality product, we spoke about that. The other one, when you're measuring customer satisfaction, then we need to include questions that address the product attributes.
Exactly.
Or do we do it the way around? We first have the customer design already built based on what the customer needs, and then we switch it into attributes. Why would we go the other way around?
Well, you want to actually build now. If this
how do you measure
was
satisfaction? I guess the question is here. So with attributes based on the design, desire, whatever, it's done at the very beginning. Then we have the attribute design, we design it. Now when we measure the satisfaction, what do we link it to? Do we go back to the first questions?
Well, we link it to the criteria that we used, because it was that the correct criteria that we used. You know, because we have those measurement criteria, and then each measurement criteria has a goal attached to it. There was a slide, green slide, and you will have it in the handouts, that had the actual measurements with the goal. And if you can measure that goal, because every single one of those measures
I remember numerical. The workshop, yeah. It has to be selected, diced into measurable.
Exactly. It has to be a measurable criteria with numerical, either percent off, dollar off, or number off. And if you have it in that type of data, then you can easily measure against the goal. And if you're below the goal, then you can start asking questions why.
So one thing
you will be.
Go ahead.
But you will be in a very specific category. You know, you don't have to try to figure out in the whole product what is wrong with it, because you will have a very specific category or attribute of the product, which is much easier to concentrate on than try to figure out the whole product.
One thing I remember from the workshop itself, and then I saw here the ranking, what's more important, you had there as outcome. But then I remember during the workshop, we talked a lot about what the customer actually experiences. They might say, I want this, but at the same time, what they really want or how they feel about it, and how do you measure what they don't express? You also had their customers answer questions that we ask.
Yes, so it's actually part of our focus group process, because in the focus group, it's a highly choreographed event, which takes about 60 minutes. And the way it's run and the way the questions are asked, there are only 6 questions that are asked, the way the questions are asked and the way they are measured, a lot of times it's and it's done in a group, so it's not just a particular person answering questions, it's a group answering questions in a very organized way, and everybody sees everybody else's answers. And when you hear somebody else answer, it brings you more, gives you more ideas. So there are several rounds of each of those questions. And then people actually look at the questions and they vote and rank what is most important. What they said may not necessarily be the most important thing that they had in mind. Because, you know, if I'll ask you, what do you like the most about the donut that you bought 2 days ago? Well, you may answer me something, and then 10 minutes later, you're like, oh, shucks, I should have said this because I really like that, but I just couldn't think of it in that moment.
The group synergy issue.
Group synergy actually creates that creative environment where sometimes on one question, on 10 people, we will get 45 or 50 answers, 45 outcomes. But then, you know, to them, it seems like this is the most important thing for me right now. But then when they look at others, it's like, huh, I didn't even think of that one, but that is really important. Like mine is like nothing compared to this one. And then you get to vote and pick top 3 of yours.
I like the focus
then when we tabulate it, you really get down to the granular level of each product on each outcome, features, and attributes.
I think you have mentioned this before. I don't know where I heard it, because we have these customer service complaint offices, but then when the customers are happy, they don't come to tell us. We have customers who just come to complain. Don't tell. So it's really important.
So we only hear bad things, but we don't hear good things.
Exactly. So I'm really happy to see Babette. Thank you for joining. We have had her as a speaker here at ASQ Boston conference as well. I think it was at the same time with you, Tony, Babette, and Hawkins. So thank you so much for joining and also commenting, which you pointed out in the house of quality there. Really important to see this redesigned way, she's saying. I know she's really good at streamlining for different and talking to different stakeholders, especially in the tech area. And that's what she's also appreciating about this new way, streamlined terms of quality. So thank you for that, Babette. And thank you from Ricardo. So I guess some positive feedback there for you, Tony.
And guys, if you have any questions, I am happy to answer any questions. Just email me. My email is on the screen. My phone is on the screen. Email me, reach out to me, and I will answer any of questions. Yeah, any of the questions that you have.
Okay, so yes, this recording will be available on YouTube as usual. So on our YouTube channel, open and free to everyone. The PowerPoint will be shared as well. I have one last question, so I don't want to leave that out. So let's take 1 more minute. For a service provider in that area too, the survey of the customers to find out what is important to them. Should we use industry standards as or benchmark best companies?
Well, there is this whole separate notion that I didn't get to about the measurements and how you use surveys and how you measure with or without surveys. It's the whole different webinar, and we can actually have a webinar on that. I have a 1 hour.
If they have interest on that, yes.
And again, depending on what you're trying to survey and depending on what you're trying to get out of the customers, a lot of times when we use benchmarks, do we really try to do a numerical survey, or we're just asking the satisfied, mostly satisfied, very satisfied? Well, that's difficult to decipher. And then how do you plot it against industry benchmarks unless you have some hard numbers? So again, depending on how you build your survey, you definitely want to use some kind of benchmark. But if you have it, because a lot of times you don't. But on the other hand, you also need to be cognizant of how you ask those questions, because a lot of times we can create surveys that will be a self-fulfilling prophecy. You know, we are pink and fluffy and we are the best, and the survey is going to show us that we are the best, damn it, because we are just going to get that 95% customer satisfaction in there. And it all depends on how you're going to ask that question.
So we're really out of time, but going back to the perception, I want to make everyone happy. It's the beginning of the year. So going back to the perception, are you saying we can't really measure? Or what I heard you saying is, let's, instead of just using a survey, let's use focus groups and really hear and also feel what they don't say.
Exactly. And then we can actually have performance measure as the surrogate for perception if we know what customers want as a perception. If we get questions, their perception in the focus group, we can create a measure from the performance as a surrogate.
We need a psychologist in the room. So, so going back to psychology and all of that, which you had many webinars last year because of what we were going through. It was a very difficult year. It was a few days ago, so it's not that it just went away. What we learned within the ASQ as well, that we need to be resilient, we need to embrace change, and sometimes we can't just expect ourselves to be the best on everything and be strong and all of that. We do need support. We are here however we can. In February the 10th, I will be on the panel too. Will be Stephanie, our chair, Galdens will be there. Kiran Mann, my co-partner and co-chair. She's also the chair for the ASQ HD&L mentoring program. We have an internal mentoring program which is free to our members. And I also have invited a person who was a mentee in this program. So we'll have both mentee and mentor experience, sharing about mentoring, the value of it, on a personal and professional level, how you can be part of it, but also resource about outside of ASQ and what it is about, and what we can do to improve ourselves and those around us, and how you can get involved in both a mentor and a mentee level. So thank you so much, Tony, for coming back and always being available. I do hear the feedback from whoever attends, so please use that survey. It's yours to be filled, and share your perceptions as well there. So be as explicit as possible. and we'll try to follow up on those. We'll be posting the webinar, we'll be sharing the email within this week about the RU credits as well for those who attended 40 minutes. I see the room is still full, so thank you so much for taking the extra time and staying with us here tonight and sharing your valuable time. Hopefully we'll bring up something to improve your lives. Thank you. Have a good night. Bye.
Thank you.